In 1995, a meteorite crashes to Earth along the banks of the Tiber River in Italy. This was no ordinary meteorite, however, as it brought an alien mineral known as Tiberium to Earth. This mineral quickly spread around the world, transforming the surrounding environment, wildlife, and even humans. Some groups, such as the Global Defense Initiative, view Tiberium as a valuable yet highly dangerous mineral, one that should be kept in check so as not to overtake the world in its green glow. But there are others who believe differently. Others who believe that Tiberium isn't so dangerous, and who believe that this mineral holds the keys to the next evolution of humanity, and that the blasphemies that GDI spew against Tiberium and those who understand its potential should not just be challenged, but crushed and cast aside. For those people, there is but one hope, one vision, one purpose: the Brotherhood of Nod. No one knows the true origins of the Brotherhood, other than the leader of the organization itself, that being a man named Cain. The charismatic and prophetic leader claims that the Brotherhood has been around for centuries, not always operating under the same name. It has also been called just simply the Brotherhood, or the Ways of Nod, or Shai Sir among the tribes of Godin. GDI believes these claims of its origins to be exaggerations, however there is some evidence to support it, particularly with the ancient tombs in North Africa depicting Nod's symbols such as the scorpion, as well as another below Nod's Cairo temple in Egypt, discovered by Commando Nick Havoc Parker, showing a rock carving of the biblical figures Cain and Abel, with Cain slaying his brother. Whether the Brotherhood's leader Cain himself is truly the same one from the Bible, or just has a fascination with the figure of his namesake, is still unknown. In any case, the Brotherhood is certainly a centuries-old organization. Up until 1995, though, they mostly operated in secret, influencing world events from behind the scenes. Most particular of note is the link between Cain and the leader of the Soviet Union, Joseph Stalin, during the Second World War in the late 1940s to early 1950s. Cain acted as Stalin's secret advisor, feeding him information that even Stalin's own generals and spies did not know. Ultimately, Stalin's bid for a united Europe under the Soviet Union would fail, with the man himself being killed during the Allies' assault on Moscow. Cain, however, would once again disappear into the shadows, never to be seen again in the open until 1995, though this did not mean that Cain or the Brotherhood were not making progress in the shadows. Over the years, they continued to covertly build up the organization's power and influence, especially amongst large international corporations. In 1994, the United States government began investigations into several major defense contractors, finding that they had substantial ties to the Brotherhood. These investigations revealed that the Brotherhood was not just a small insurgent group, but in fact a well-equipped underground military power, able to field assets across all domains of the battlefield, including land, sea, and air. They also have built up considerable economic wealth, with operating assets in excess of US $255.2 billion. Other publications reveal that the Brotherhood's political influence at this time was also quite considerable, believed to be backing several radical political parties around the world, such as the United We Stand America Party in the United States and the Albion Fist Party in the United Kingdom. They also have had affiliations with other insurgent groups, such as the Irish Republican Party and the Khmer Rouge. The world would not fully understand the Brotherhood's true strength until 1995, where they would make themselves publicly known. The organizational structure of the Brotherhood is very simple. Cain is the supreme leader and holds absolute power over all beneath him. As one of Cain's officers, Seth, would put it,
"From God to Cain to Seth."
However, right below Cain is a small and secretive group of high-ranking members. Members who are handpicked by the enigmatic leader due to their devotion to the Brotherhood, and of course, Cain himself. This group was known as the Inner Circle. The members of this circle had a lot of power within the organization. able to command all operational facets of the Brotherhood, including military, economic, scientific, and religious. The members of the Inner Circle don't always get along with each other. In fact, many times they will fight amongst themselves. This type of internal rivalry within the Brotherhood is commonplace, and perhaps even encouraged to a certain extent. These conflicts usually occur during times when Kane has disappeared, and the Brotherhood is in need of a new Supreme Leader to fill the void. This can sometimes cause the Brotherhood to be shattered for long periods of time and engage in a prolonged civil war amongst themselves, allowing GDI to take advantage of the chaos. But when Kane inevitably returns, as he always does, the Brotherhood is once again reunited, eager to fulfill the Prophet's vision for humanity.
You can't kill the Messiah.
It would be a mistake for one to assume that the Brotherhood of Nod is just simply a politically motivated organization in the same category as that of GDI. For you see, the Brotherhood also has a religious component, one that they claim is of ancient origin since the founding of the organization. At the center of that religion is of course Kane. Many members of the Brotherhood consider the man to be a prophet, who foresaw the coming of Tiberium to Earth. Kane even refers to himself on a couple of occasions as the Messiah. The Brotherhood are famous for their rallying cries and slogans, such as One Vision, One Purpose, and Peace Through Power.
Peace through power! Peace through power!
Their overall goal is to strive for a world of peace, unity, and eternal brotherhood, and they believe the way to achieve this is through Tiberium. During the Second Tiberium War, the concept of divination was brought into the religion, which was to be the process by which followers of the Brotherhood, and eventually all carbon-based life on Earth, would be transformed to Tiberium-based life, enhanced to thrive in a new Tiberium world. This was originally meant to be achieved through a world-altering missile, but the plan was halted by GDI. As time went on, the Brotherhood's religious beliefs would only grow stronger, and become an even more integral part of the organization. The concept of divination would eventually evolve into ascension, where Kane and the rest of the Brotherhood would ascend to the Promised Land, no longer bound to the constraints of the Earth and the oppression of GDI. Unlike the Global Defense Initiative, who focus on a more brute force method of combat involving many land, sea, and air assets, the Brotherhood of Nod puts an emphasis on guerrilla tactics, stealth, and subterfuge. Many of their vehicles lack the firepower or armor compared to those of GDI, but they make up for that with their speed and maneuverability, as well as the fact that they are generally cheaper to produce and can field them in much larger numbers. The same can be applied to Nod infantry. Though generally not as well equipped as the average GDI infantrymen, they can bring more of them onto the battlefield. This is largely due to Nod having a huge influence in many third world countries during the First Tiberium War, as well as in the Yellow Zones many years later around the time of the Third War. While GDI is thought to outmatch the Brotherhood in weapons research and development, the Brotherhood has made their own advancements in this field. Due to GDI having total superiority in space, the Brotherhood has developed extensive and elaborate underground networks of tunnels and bases. They also have made great advancements in laser technology, which led to the construction of one of their most powerful defensive weapons, the Obelisk of Light, a giant laser tower capable of instantly destroying almost all ground vehicles in the GDI arsenal. Further emphasizing the Brotherhood's doctrine of guerrilla warfare is the use of their stealth technology, which can be used on vehicles in order to hide their movements, or allow them to ambush enemy forces before disappearing as if they were never there. The technology even allows them to hide their bases, seemingly out in the open in plain sight. The final bit of technology that the Brotherhood is known for, and perhaps the most controversial, is their cybernetics. This allows them to augment some of their soldiers to become stronger and more powerful than the average human, though this comes at a price for the cyborg soldier, involving the replacement of human limbs with mechanical ones, and the loss of free will and emotion. Those willing to go along with such a transformation are truly the most devout of Brotherhood's soldiers. Probably the most important weapon in the Brotherhood's arsenal, however, isn't some advanced piece of technology, but instead propaganda, allowing the Brotherhood to sway public opinion to their cause through deception, intimidation, and fear. As Kane himself would put it simply,
Now, of course, it's not true. But the world only believes what the media tells them to believe. And I tell the media what to believe. It's really quite simple.
Shortly after the arrival of Tiberium on Earth, Nod quickly moved to develop harvesting and refining operations of the alien mineral. Cain himself proclaimed that it was the Brotherhood who found the mineral first, and named it after the second Roman emperor, Tiberius Caesar Augustus. The Brotherhood was able to establish a monopoly on the Tiberium harvesting industry, controlling almost half the world's supply at 49%, allowing them to gain even more wealth, power, and influence, especially over third world nations. The rest of the world's Tiberium holdings were split between GDI, with the support of the UN and G7 countries, at 27%, and the neutral countries holding the other 24%. Since GDI's original mission was to counter the Brotherhood of Nod, this meant that it was inevitable that the two factions would eventually come into direct and open conflict with each other. The final event that would trigger the First Tiberium War was the bombing of the Gain Trade Center in Vienna, which was the 17th urban bombing in 4 weeks. GDI blamed the bombing on the Brotherhood. There were other reports of terrorist activities going on in Slovenia, which were also reported to be perpetrated by the Brotherhood as well. In a closed session, the Security Council of the UN gave GDI permission to openly conduct military operations against the Brotherhood of Nod. This conflict would begin in the late 90s and last about 3 years. At the start of the war, the Brotherhood launched a massive campaign to take over much of the African continent. The campaign was highly successful, practically driving out all GDI forces and securing much land and resources for the Brotherhood. Much of this initial success was in part due to one of Cain's top-ranking officers, Seth, and the recruitment of a new but competent commander of the Brotherhood. Seth would later try to have this new commander killed by ordering him to assault the Pentagon in the United States, as he had grown jealous of his victories in battle. But Cain would put a stop to this, disposing of Seth and replacing him with a new commander. With Africa under the Brotherhood's control, Cain decided it was time to strike at mainland Europe, which had overwhelming support for GDI. To erode this support, Cain would launch a massive propaganda campaign, claiming that GDI were committing war crimes by purposely massacring civilians. The most effective of these claims was the slaughtering of the population of Bialystok in Poland by the hands of GDI soldiers. This would ultimately force the United Nations Security Council to cut GDI's funding, shutting down most of their bases in Europe and making the few that were still operational more vulnerable to the Brotherhood's assaults. To Cain's surprise, however, this was a bluff, in order to lure Nod into assaulting fortified GDI positions. This allowed them to not only repel the Brotherhood's assaults, but also go on the counteroffensive, pushing the Brotherhood out of much of mainland Europe and retaking lost territory. The war would eventually come to a close when the Brotherhood made a valiant last stand at the Temple of Nod in Sarajevo, the capital of Bosnia and Herzegovina. GDI forces assaulted and destroyed the temple at Sarajevo using their powerful space-based weapon, the ion cannon. Cain himself was at the temple during the battle, the few Nod survivors claiming that he had held strong to the end with his most loyal Brotherhood members, and embraced death in the glow of the ion beam itself. Following the destruction of the Temple of Nod and the apparent death of Cain, the Brotherhood would fracture and become embroiled in a prolonged civil war, lasting about 30 years. This would become known to the Brotherhood as the First Nod Reunification War. This war would ultimately boil down to 2 high-ranking generals and their loyalists fighting to become the supreme leader of the Brotherhood. The first was General Hassan. Hassan had secretly made dealings with the GDI general James Solomon. This deal allowed Hassan to stay in power over the Brotherhood in exchange for maintaining relative peace between the two factions. This meant making sure that more extreme members of the organization would be taken out before they could become a threat to Hassan and GDI. Extreme members like Anton Slavik, leader of the Black Hand, the most loyal followers of Cain. Hassan would capture Slavik and attempt to have him publicly executed. However, the Black Hand leader would escape with the help of those loyal to him, allowing Slavik to rally more support for his cause. This culminated in a final battle between Slavik and Hassan's forces in Cairo. Slavik would win the battle, capturing Hassan and sentencing him to be publicly executed, bringing an end to the First Reunification War.
In the name of Cain! In the name of Cain! Cain lives!
Cain would unveil his return at Hassan's execution, seemingly unscathed by the ion cannon blast at Sarajevo, though in reality he had sustained injuries from it, but kept this fact hidden from much of the Brotherhood. With his return, Cain would launch an all-out assault against GDI bases all over the world. The war saw Nod field some new technologies, such as subterranean vehicles, cyborg infantry, and improved stealth technology. During the conflict, the Brotherhood would recover an object known as the Tacitus from a group of Tiberium-mutated humans called the Forgotten. Kane claimed that this ancient and powerful artifact held the secrets to understanding Tiberium and unlocking its full potential. This would culminate in the creation of a world-altering missile. This missile was designed to detonate in the Earth's upper atmosphere, converting all carbon-based life on Earth to Tiberium-based life. Kane would refer to this transformation as divination. The Brotherhood came very close to achieving this goal, having the missile fully prepped to launch at the Nod Temple in Cairo. However, a GDI assault on the complex, led by Commander Michael McNeil, would ultimately thwart this plan by destroying the missile complex. In the end, Kane and McNeil would engage in hand-to-hand combat, a battle which McNeil would win, officially bringing an end to the Second Tiberium War, lasting less than a year. Following the apparent second death of Kane, the Brotherhood was once again on the brink of becoming fractured and embroiled in a civil war. Anton Slavik and the rest of the Nod Inner Circle found themselves at odds with each other on who should be the new leader. In an attempt to reunite the Brotherhood, Slavik ordered one of his commanders to reacquire Cabal, the AI that Nod used to provide them with tactical and logistical information, a counterpart to GDI's Ava AI. However, shortly after reacquiring and reactivating Cabal, the AI went rogue, destroying the Inner Circle. Slavik was the only one who managed to survive, due to not having any cyborg soldiers around him, which were now all under Cabal's control. The Brotherhood would replace the rogue AI with a captured Ava unit, and use it to try and help them defeat Cabal. However, this failed, and the Brotherhood realized that they did not have the manpower or intelligence to defeat the rogue AI alone. This caused Slavik and GDI General Paul Cortez to form a temporary alliance between the two factions in order to deal with the threat. With their combined strength and intelligence, GDI and Nod would successfully defeat Cabal through the destruction of its core. Slavik would proclaim this as a victory against the single greatest threat to the Brotherhood, unifying the organization until the time when Kane would return. Unfortunately for Anton Slavik, he would not live to see Kane's return. Slavik's own group, the Black Hand, were not happy with their now very public leader bringing so much attention to what was supposed to be a secretive sub-faction within the Brotherhood. This, coupled with infiltration by a GDI spy who convinced other members to go against him, would ultimately lead to Slavik being assassinated by one of his own, once again splintering the Brotherhood, with the Black Hand exiling themselves to Australia under the new leadership of a man named Brother Marcion. Kane would reappear sometime in the year 2034, re-emerging from a stasis tube that he had been put into by Cabal in order to heal in the aftermath of his fight with McNeil. Kane was intent on reuniting and rebuilding the Brotherhood, and exacting his revenge upon GDI. To do this, Kane created a new advanced AI which would come to be known as Legion to assist him. Throughout this time period, the three following events occurred. The first was the Great Rio Insurrection. Nod forces helped the local populace in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, to overthrow the GDI garrison there and expose its corruption. A renegade Nod warlord in the area attempted to resist the Brotherhood forces led by Legion, but was defeated. This victory inspired other Nod splinter cells to start rising up against GDI, marking the first step to reunification. The second event took place in Australia, where Nod was able to recover information regarding their stealth technology, which was stolen from them by GDI. While there, Kane was also able to convince Marcion to return to the Brotherhood and swear his allegiance to him, bringing the Black Hand back into the fold. The final event, which Kane would call the Grand Gesture, involved destroying a GDI Tiberium research facility in Central Australia. The destruction of this facility caused a huge explosion, which spread Tiberium fallout all across the continent, transforming much of the land into Tiberium fields. This caused all Nod forces around the world to rally to Kane's cause, allowing the Brotherhood to gain control over much of the world's yellow zones, once again unifying the Brotherhood and making it a force to be reckoned with. The Brotherhood of Nod would start the Third Tiberium War in the year 2047, by capturing the Goddard Space Center and disabling GDI's anti-satellite defense network. This allowed a temporary opening for Nod to launch an ICBM missile at the GDSS Philadelphia and destroy it, while many of GDI's high-ranking officials and leaders were on board attending an energy summit. This meant that the Director of the Treasury, Redmond Boyle, was escalated to head acting director of GDI, which is exactly what Kane wanted, as Boyle was an incompetent politician and general. In addition, Nod forces launched multiple coordinated attacks against GDI-controlled blue zones around the world. The goal of these assaults wasn't to gain permanent control over them, but instead to keep GDI distracted while the Brotherhood completed the assembly of a liquid Tiberium bomb, which they could use to wipe GDI off the map. GDI caught wind of these efforts and attempted to stop them, but the Brotherhood managed to transport the components to the newly built Temple Prime in Sarajevo. This caused GDI to converge a large number of their forces to that location. This was also as Kane had planned. However, what Kane had not planned for was some of his own Brotherhood troops, who had been called in to reinforce the temple, going rogue and turning against him. While the commander at the base was able to hold them off, this weakened the defenses around the temple, allowing for GDI to assault and penetrate its outer defenses. Director Boyle then ordered the ion cannon to be used to wipe Temple Prime off the map. The strike from the ion cannon triggered the liquid Tiberium below the temple, causing a massive explosion that showered much of Eastern Europe in Tiberium fallout. The Brotherhood, believing Kane to have been killed in the ion strike, was ordered by his second-in-command, Killian Qatar, to regroup in the Australian outback. While the Brotherhood was regrouping, an alien race known as the Skren began their invasion of Earth, drawn to the planet due to the liquid Tiberium explosion. In order to counter this new extraterrestrial threat, Killian Qatar negotiated a ceasefire with GDI to deal with these alien invaders. However, Kane would re-emerge and take back control of the Brotherhood, labeling Killian as a traitor for siding with GDI, and ordering her to be executed. Kane would reveal that inciting GDI to use the ion cannon at Temple Prime and luring the Skren to Earth was all part of his plan.
According to the Tacitus, a liquid Tiberium explosion would alert the visitor's scout ships. But all of my experiments with liquid T failed to produce the necessary blast yield. That is why I started the war with GDI, to provoke their ion cannon retaliation. The only force my science ministers deemed a strong enough detonator for liquid T.
The Skren began to build 19 threshold towers in the Earth's red zones. These towers acted as large portals, capable of transferring large amounts of Tiberium and Skren across the galaxy. GDI took notice of this, and upon repelling the Skren's initial assaults, began focusing on the destruction of these towers. Kane and the Brotherhood moved to secure one of the towers in southern Italy in order to ensure its completion. They held off wave after wave of GDI assaults on the tower, allowing it to be completed, thereby making it completely invulnerable to any damage, and allowing the Brotherhood to unlock whatever secrets it may hold within its structure. Thus, the Third Tiberium War would come to an end, with what was left of the Skren invasion force having escaped through Threshold 19, and the Brotherhood of Nod retreating underground as it had done so at the end of the previous wars. A shadow of its former self, but according to Kane, this was how it should be. But this was not the last that the world would see of the Brotherhood. In order for Kane to proceed further with his plans of ascension, he needed the Tacitus, which was in the hands of GDI at the Rocky Mountains complex in North America, undergoing experiments which had caused the artifact to become highly unstable. In 2052, Kane's AI Legion would awaken to lead the assault on the complex. I say awaken since another one of Kane's officers during the Third Tiberium War, Alexa Kovacs, attempted to infect Legion with a virus in order to destroy it, fearing that the AI would one day go rogue just as Cabal did during the Firestorm crisis. Kane and his men were able to stop her, but she would take her own life before any new information could be extracted. In preparation for the assault on the complex, Kane would have Legion awaken a secret army of cyborgs known as the Marked of Kane, which had been lying dormant in underground vaults beneath Russia and Southeast Asia for many years. These cyborg soldiers, combined with the forces of the Black Hand, would be enough to overrun the Rocky Mountains complex and retrieve the Tacitus. Though Kane now had the Tacitus back in his possession, he had to make use of it quickly due to its instability. This resulted in him merging the artifact with Legion, allowing the AI to pick up a message from the Skren. The translated message saying that Threshold Tower 19 was active and that a full invasion force was imminent. Though the Brotherhood of Nod may no longer seem to be the strong and expansive power that it used to be, this by no means makes them weak. In fact, in some ways, the Brotherhood is more powerful than ever. With the Tacitus back in the hands of Kane, he can continue to unlock all its secrets, with the help of the most advanced AI on the planet, Legion. His forces, while few, are no less powerful, with the loyal Black Hand at his side with the fully obedient Marked of Kane cyborgs. The Brotherhood of Nod now stands on the precipice of ascension, and Cain will be the one to lead them. One vision, one purpose, peace through power.